Welcome to Your Most Beautiful Life, where we go beyond baskets and bins to organize a life that nourishes the best of who you are. Whether you're a new mom finding your rhythm or an empty nester building a legacy, this podcast will inspire and equip you to create a life filled with beauty, peace, and intention. Let's build your most beautiful life together. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm really glad to be here with you. So I have Chance and Shadow, and the three of us are just sitting down to record on this cold January morning. And I've got this cozy sweater and my Barefoot Dreams blanket and a little floor heater next to me in case I need it. So honestly, the weeks since Christmas have felt like a bit of a surprise gift for me. I expected January to come in fast with me jumping back into everything, and instead it slowed me down. Things felt quieter. There was more time at home and more rest and less urgency. And just as the month was winding down and I was gearing back up for my podcast rhythm, it snowed. And even though that was 5 days ago and we still have quite a bit of snow on the ground, I've been here and I've been resting and I've been embracing it. And honestly, there are hardly even any tracks on our property except for our pet deer that wander through now and again. So we've just been home, mostly inside and settled in. And altogether, the last few weeks have been way slower than I planned. I've been joking that I accidentally embraced wintering this year. You know, I've been what I'm calling wintering. I didn't set out to do anything different, but January just invited me to slow down and embrace all that the season has to offer. And so this time I let it. And I think maybe I've always had this rhythm. I've just never named it before. So now it's already on my calendar for next year. And the title is Wintering. And in case you're not familiar with wintering, I showed up for my normal rhythms. I didn't cancel things or disappear. I did postpone podcast, but the month itself was slower. And it was like there was more space in it and more room to rest and recover and more room to be present. And it felt like less creating and more receiving, and less producing and more taking in. And I had just finished up the holiday legacy, and then our family Christmas was over. And when I looked back, I realized that I had been in full creation mode for almost about 3 months. So in a way, it felt like the calendar, the weather, and my own rhythms all lined up and said, now is the time to recover. And it also made me think back to last year when rest and recovery were not an option for me. When I injured my knee and I slipped on black ice January 5th, 1 year ago, I did not get to negotiate with that season. My body decided for me, and I had to slow down whether I wanted to or not. So that was also when I had plenty of time to read the book Wintering, and the idea stayed with me. So she talks about wintering as those periods in life when things naturally slow down and when progress feels slower and when work, the work is happening mostly beneath the surface, not as something to fix or to push through, but something to live inside for a while. So this year, felt different. Nothing forced me to stop, and there wasn't an injury, thank the Lord, or a hard pause. It was just more like the season itself made space, and I noticed it. And instead of resisting it or trying to push past it, I let myself stay there. I let myself winter for January. And I liked what it gave me enough that I've already put it on my calendar for next year. It's going to be part of my yearly Sabbath. So I do Sabbath on every Friday from noon to Saturday at noon, just to take a pause, put down my phone, relax, take in, receive, restore. And that's what I'm putting into my yearly calendar now with wintering. So we took our annual family ski trip, and we've raised our kids skiing. And now our oldest grandbabies, Palmer and Price, they're 4 years old, and they're learning to ski. And even our 2-year-old grandson, Riser, he had to get out there too with his big brother. So I honestly can't think of anything cuter than seeing them all bundled up in their snow gear. But now I'm back here and I'm warm and I'm settled and honestly just excited to be recording again and to be talking with you and spending this time with you. So I have a really great episode for you today. And if you've ever felt unsure about trusting yourself or felt like confidence lives somewhere out there, somewhere outside of you, this conversation is for you. Because what I want to do today is I want to winter in this subject. I want to slow down and get really practical and talk through some of the ways I see women struggling to trust themselves. So not in the obvious ways, but in everyday patterns that often go unnoticed. So there's this phrase that I return to often in my work with women. I like to say, become or becoming the woman you've been looking for. And I want to be clear about what I mean about that. So I'm not talking about finding the right mentor or discovering the one person who finally knows what you don't, or waiting for a future version of yourself who feels confident enough to take the reins. What I'm talking about is learning how to trust yourself. And more specifically, learning how to repair the relationship that you have with your own knowing. So, because for many women, that relationship has quietly been eroded over time. And not through one dramatic event, but through years of subtle self-doubt, overcorrection, and hesitation. And that has been mislabeled as humility or faithfulness. When I begin to talk with women, about learning to trust themselves, one of the most common fears that surfaces, especially among women of faith, is the concern that trusting themselves means placing themselves above God. As though self-trust and trust in God are somehow in competition with one another. This fear deserves to be named gently, because it has shaped so many women's lives without ever being spoken out loud. So most of us have learned a spiritual language that emphasizes trusting God, seeking God, waiting on God, surrendering outcomes, and asking for direction. And all of this language is meaningful and true and necessary. But what often happens is this language becomes disconnected from our embodiment. Instead of producing peace or wisdom, it quietly can train women to distrust themselves. And we begin to believe that if we don't feel a certain way, we shouldn't move. And if we don't feel confident, we shouldn't choose. And if we don't receive external confirmation, our internal knowing must not be reliable. And so I want to slow this down and ask an honest question. What does it actually say about God if we believe he calls us to trust him while simultaneously believing that what he placed in us cannot be trusted? The same God we say, we say we trust is the one who gave us life and breath and awareness. He forms our minds and our nervous system and our capacity to discern, to reflect, and to grow in wisdom over time. He did not design us to live disconnected from ourselves. He's given us his spirit, and that's not, as a distant signal, but as a present counselor who dwells in us, shaping wisdom and restraint and conviction and courage in quiet, personal ways. He has given us lived experience where there's years of learning patterns we recognize now because we have lived long enough to see them, repeat themselves. And yet many women live as though none of that counts unless it's validated from an outside source. So we're going to talk about how our self-concept actually shapes authority. And a woman's self-concept is the collection of thoughts she holds about herself. It quietly determines how much authority she believes she has over her own life. So when the dominant belief is, I'm not enough, I don't know enough, I can't be trusted to choose well, she will naturally keep looking for someone who feels safer to follow. And not because she lacks wisdom, but because she has not learned to credit herself with the wisdom she already carries. Do you want to hear that again? It's not because she lacks wisdom. It's because she has not yet learned to credit herself with the wisdom she already carries. This belief is reinforced everywhere we turn. We are surrounded by messages that tell us to fear being wrong, doubt our instincts, distrust our bodies. And so we learn to delay our lives while waiting for clarity and confidence or permission to arrive. And so this is why confidence never comes from arrival. Because what I want you to know is that's not where it comes from. It comes from the relationship, specifically with yourself. Trust is not a personality trait. It's not reserved for decisive or outspoken women, right? It's a relationship built over time through small movements of staying instead of abandoning yourself. And, I used to hear that phrase and I really didn't understand it. So I'm like, I'm going to put the definition in here. By abandoning yourself, I mean to dismiss your own thoughts or instincts the moment doubt arises. It means immediately deferring to someone else's opinion. It means overcorrecting out of fear. It means assuming your first knowing must be wrong. So this relationship is built when you listen inwardly and don't immediately override what you hear. And you make a decision and allow yourself to learn from it. And you stop interrupting uncertainty as evidence, you stop interpreting uncertainty as evidence that you are unqualified or unsafe. Becoming the woman you've been looking for is not about becoming more impressive on the outside. It's about becoming someone that you can rely on internally. Someone who doesn't disappear, meaning you don't shut down, you don't go quiet, and you don't second guess yourself into inaction. The moment things feel unclear or uncomfortable or unfinished. So trusting yourself does not mean trusting yourself instead of God. It means trusting the way God has already been at work within you. It means believing the wisdom he has given you is acceptable. The spirit he has placed within you is active. That your ability to discern and choose is not a threat to humility. A woman who trusts herself is not a woman who no longer needs God. She's a woman who no longer believes she is cut off from him. She stops living as though guidance is withheld. She stops living as though clarity is scarce. She stops believing she must reach some external milestone before she's allowed to move forward. And when this shift happens, something very quiet but powerful takes place. She stops scanning for permission. She stops waiting to feel ready. She stops outsourcing her authority while calling it faith. And she begins to stand not in self-reliance, but in alignment. That woman that you've been looking for is not braver than you, not wiser than you, not more connected than you to God. She has, simply learned to stay with herself long enough to trust what was already been given. She's not found somewhere outside of you. She's formed slowly and honestly. And as you learn to believe that you were never meant to live disconnected from your own knowing in the first place. As we close today, I want to slow this all the way down and bring it back to what matters most. And at the heart of this conversation is not confidence, and it's not certainty. It's a relationship. The relationship that you have with yourself, with your own knowing, your discernment, and your ability to stay present with yourself when things feel unclear. This shapes the way you move through every season of life. And so many women are not lacking wisdom, and they're not actually lacking faith. You're simply accustomed to stepping away from yourself too quickly. And we begin to assume hesitation means danger and uncertainty means disqualification, or waiting means faithfulness. And what I hope you heard today is this: self-trust is not self-reliance, and it's not rebellion, and it is alignment with who God created you to be. And it's learning to remain with yourself instead of disappearing, the moment that you don't feel perfectly sure. It's allowing decisions to become teachers instead of tests. And it's recognizing that the wisdom you're seeking has been forming quietly through the years of lived experience and discernment and growth. And maybe this is where wintering gently comes back in. Because wintering, whether we name it or not, is often the season where this kind of relationship softens and where it deepens. Where there's less striving, less proving, and more listening and more receiving and more space to notice what's already there. So if your life feels slower right now or quieter than you expected, it may not be something to push past. It may be creating room for trust to be restored. Not trust in some future version of you, but trust in the woman that you already are. Becoming the woman you've been looking for doesn't happen through one day arriving. It happens through staying present, staying honest, and staying connected. Thank you for being here with me today. I'm really glad that we're here together, and I'll be back with you again next week. That's it for today on Your Most Beautiful Life. I hope you're feeling inspired to create more beauty, peace, and intention in your everyday life. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you'll never miss what's next. And if you loved it, I'd be so grateful if you leave a review or share it with a friend. Until next time, keep building your most beautiful life.